You're worthless!" The word slammed through the room like a cold verdict. The wall clock read 4:20 p.m., and outside, rain started tapping the window, thin but relentless, like it wanted to witness what came next. Carla clutched the suitcase I'd packed, jaw set, breath clipped. "I can't keep supporting you, Mom. I need my space." Her voice felt distant, almost professional. I looked around. The dining table still smelled like fresh coffee. The rug was damp from the drops I'd tracked in from the yard. Everything felt so mine, and somehow not mine at all. "So that's it?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "That's it." The click of the lock came right after. Dry, final. A small sound that could split a life clean in two. I grabbed the suitcase, drew a long breath, and stepped down the 3 stairs to the gate. The cold air smelled like wet earth and goodbye. Each step echoed like a memory of everything I'd built. I didn't cry. Not even when I heard the gate close behind me. Only the rain, mixing with the sound of my own breathing. At the bus stop, I glanced back one last time. The house looked smaller, but the hurt was far too big to fit inside any wall. And what if I told you that one day she'd pay rent? To me. Not out of revenge, out of balance. Because when love is shoved out the door, justice finds its way through the deed. If you believe time gives back what's fair, hit subscribe, and come with me to the end of this. Before everything fell apart, mornings smelled like fresh coffee and sounded like an old AM radio. I'd be up before sunrise, light the burner, and let the toast slow golden while steam curled from the mugs and the world still felt in order. Carla would hurry down the stairs, phone to her ear, rattling off clients, deadlines, deliverables, barely touched the coffee. I watched in silence, trying not to picture the little girl who once begged for bedtime stories and now lived chained to spreadsheets. After I was widowed, the house became my refuge and my prison. The private literature tutoring I did covered the basics, but when Carla asked me to move in with her, I thought it was love. "So you won't be alone, Mom." It was care, until it turned into control. For a while, it looked like harmony. I tended plants, cooked, did laundry. But little by little, simple gestures became irritants. She frowned if I left the paper on the table, if the smell of garlic lingered, if the kitchen clock ticked a beat too loud. I remember one cold night, I made chicken soup, her favorite. I waited up. When she came in, she eased the door shut and said only, "You didn't have to. I already ate." The steam rose by itself and faded into the air, taking a sliver of my pride along with it. I started feeling like a guest in my own life. Spoke softly, walked lightly, flipped off lights before I needed to. Even my clothes seemed to ask permission in the closet. One Sunday, I watched her close the bedroom door and realized the distance between us no longer fit inside a conversation. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "When love needs permission to exist, it's already moved out." The pen cut the page like the first crack in plaster. I didn't know it yet, but that line would be the opening stroke of a permanent divide. There are silences that warn what words aren't brave enough to say. That Tuesday, the sky felt heavy even before the rain began. Clouds gathered over the neighborhood like they were keeping a secret. I was sweeping dry leaves on the porch when I heard her car pull in. The slam of the door said it all. A storm was coming. Carla came in fast, her heels striking the floor. She dropped her purse on the couch, took a breath, and said flatly, "We need to talk." Her tone wasn't a daughter's. It was an auditor's. "Of course, honey. What happened?" "The bills, Mom. Power, groceries, maintenance. I've been covering everything for months. It's not fair." I froze, dish towel in hand. The faint smell of burnt coffee drifted from the kitchen. "I try to help. I pay for the gas, the internet. My pension barely stretches." She ran her fingers through her hair, frustrated. "But you live here. It all adds up." "Adds up to what?" I whispered. "That's not what I meant." "Oh, it's exactly what you meant." The silence that followed hit harder than a shout. She tried to recover. "Mom, I just need space. I feel like you're not trying to change." Space? Physical or emotional? Both. I looked around. The plant we'd potted when she was 10, her graduation photo, the clock from my wedding, all fragments of my life, but suddenly it all looked like a stranger's house. So tell me, Carla, what do you want me to do? She took a deep breath, eyes cold. I want you to find another place to live. That way we can be okay. The words cut through the air like lightning. For a second, the world just stopped. Another place? I repeated. This is the house I raised you in. It was. Now it's mine. The thunderclap landed right with the snap of the door. The wind rushed in, whipping the curtains. Memories turned to dust suspended in midair. That night, I packed slowly. The drawers seemed to watch me, silent accomplices to my leaving. I took only the essentials: clothes, a book of poems, a photo of her as a child. On the note I left on the table, I wrote simply, "Thank you for everything. Take care." When I stepped out, the smell of wet soil and cold air filled my lungs. I closed the gate gently, as if tucking a chapter to rest, and walked toward the bus stop. The city breathed with me, heavy, wordless. As the bus pulled away, I watched the house shrink in the rain until it was only a faint outline. Something in me cracked that night, but along with the sting of breaking came a thread of resolve, a quiet thought. If she thinks I'm good for nothing, one day time will show her exactly what I was good for. And destiny, patient as ever, was already sharpening its pen. The first days away from home tasted like metal and cold coffee. The boarding house where I landed smelled of mildew and held its despair neatly tucked between the walls. The room was small, the window barely opened. At night, the rumble of trains sliced through the quiet, reminding me the world kept moving, even when I wished it would stop. In the morning, I forced myself to get up, made coffee, even with no one to share it. The scent alone reminded me I was still here. The foggy bathroom mirror showed a tired face, but still a dignified one. I didn't cry much. Maybe the tears had already dried up years earlier, in every little humiliation disguised as coexistence. Now the emptiness was just a clean echo. I started walking around the neighborhood. Simple streets, but full of life. People selling fruit, kids playing ball, older women chatting through open windows. Among strangers, I found something new, anonymity with a taste of freedom. One afternoon, I stopped in front of a shop window and saw my reflection among porcelain dolls. I thought I was one of them, pretty, still, and kept by someone who stopped seeing me. When the rain started, I ducked into a bakery. The smell of warm bread and melted butter brought back memories of Carla coming home from school, laughing, starving. A good memory before things went wrong. At the next table, a man reading the paper looked up and smiled kindly. "Mrs. Helena, it's me, Arthur, from school. Remember?" It took a moment to recognize him. Time had marked us both, but his eyes were still steady, kind. We talked for minutes that felt like hours. He worked in real estate now. Investments, properties, second chances. "If you ever need anything, let me know," he said. Sometimes destiny hands us strange but fair opportunities. That line lingered in my mind like a prophecy. Days later, I went back to teaching, writing classes at a community center. Shy teens, single mothers starting over, immigrants chasing new chances. Every gaze gave me back pieces of the woman I'd lost. A young student once gave me flowers and said, "You teach with soul." I smiled. For the first time in months, I felt useful, not out of obligation, but by nature. Then, one rainy morning, the phone rang. It was Arthur. "Mrs. Helena, a property just came up. Small but promising. The address might sound familiar." When he said the street name, the world seemed to hold its breath. It was mine. It was her house. Sometimes destiny doesn't speak. It repeats addresses. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the note Arthur had sent. The address pulsed on the screen like a heartbeat of irony. Clemente Street, number 74. The house. I stayed there for a while, rain drumming softly against the window, the air thick with that same scent of wet earth from the night I left. It felt as if the universe had turned back just to look me in the eye. The next morning, I went to the real estate agency he'd mentioned. The building was sleek and new, the air perfumed with money and fresh paint. The echo of high heels on the marble floor sounded like the rhythm of justice. Cool, deliberate, inevitable. A young receptionist named Lydia greeted me with a polished smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" "I'd like some information about the property on Clemente Street, 74. She typed for a moment, then nodded. "Ah, yes. Recently renovated house. Great location. The owner needed to sell urgently. Price is below market." My stomach went cold. "Owner?" "Yes. A woman named Carla Duarte." A shiver ran down my spine. "She doesn't live there anymore?" "No, ma'am. The house is vacant." The sound of a stapler clicking somewhere nearby punctuated the silence between us. "May I see the paperwork?" I asked. She handed me a beige folder. The smell of paper and ink sent me straight into the past. There it was, her name, the numbers, the deed history, all neat, emotionless. I thanked her, keeping my voice steady. "Could I take a copy?" "Of course. Just sign here." As I returned the pen, I realized its tip was still warm, from the same kind of hand that once pointed me to the door. Later, I met Arthur in a quiet cafe that smelled of strong coffee and rain on the awning. "So it's true," he said. "It is, and I want to buy it." "Personally?" "No, legally." I explained that I wanted everything done properly. No revenge, just precision. "I want the contract flawless. I want destiny to have no reason to repeat itself." Arthur looked at me with quiet admiration. "Time's on your side, Helena." I smiled. "This time I've got the clock and the law." Some comebacks don't ask for vengeance. They ask for signatures. Arthur arranged a meeting for the next morning. The law office of Dr. Augusto Noguera sat in an old downtown building, tall windows, the scent of fresh paper mixed with brewed coffee. In the hallway, every step echoed like time-keeping count of the truth. When I walked in, he stood to greet me. Gray hair, calm eyes, a voice that didn't need volume to command respect. Behind him hung a framed phrase that read, "Justice is time dressed in paper." "Mrs. Helena," he said, shaking my hand, "Arthur told me a bit about your case, but I'd rather hear it from you. What exactly do you want?" I took a breath. "I want to buy a house. Quietly." He raised an eyebrow. "Quietly?" "Yes. It's the house where I lived for 30 years. My daughter owns it now. She kicked me out. But it's up for sale, and I intend to buy it, legally, without her knowing." He kept his expression steady, no judgment, only focus. "And why the secrecy?" "Because I don't want to humiliate anyone. I just want to reclaim what's mine, and close the circle in peace." He nodded slowly. "Then what you're seeking isn't revenge, it's protection." "Exactly." He opened a folder, started jotting notes. "We can set it up through an investment fund. That guarantees full confidentiality. Your name won't appear on the deed, only the administrators. All perfectly lawful." "Perfect." As he explained the details, the steady ticking of the wall clock seemed to sync with my breathing. For the first time, I felt the universe handing the pen back to me. No shouting, no tears, just clauses and control. When we finished, he asked calmly, "Do you plan to keep the property or lease it afterward?" "I plan to rent it out, preferably to the same person who made me leave." He met my gaze. No surprise, only respect. "Then we'll leave the rental clause open. When fate turns the wheel, everything will look perfectly natural." I smiled faintly. "Time has a good memory, Doctor." He answered with a serene truth I'd never forget. "So does the law, Mrs. Helena. The difference is, time forgives. The law doesn't." I signed the first papers. The sound of the pen gliding over the document rang like the closing note of a long, unfinished song. Some allies don't carry swords, they carry stamps. A few weeks later, Arthur called, his tone almost amused. "Mrs. Helena, do you believe in irony?" "That depends on the punchline." "The new tenant interested in the house." is your daughter." For a moment, my heartbeat slowed, as if it needed time to believe what it just heard. The ticking of the kitchen clock grew louder. "Her?" "Yes. She says the place feels perfect for her new phase, wants a fresh start." The cold wind of irony brushed through me. Then let her start, within the law. Arthur understood immediately. "Nothing changes. The contract proceeds through the intermediary. Your name stays invisible." 2 days later, I went to the real estate office. I didn't need to, but I wanted to hear the sound of destiny turning its own key. The room smelled of polish and new paper. The agent was straightening up the documents when Carla walked in. Her heels struck the floor like a gavel, hair tied back, face serious. She greeted the agent, set her purse down, and said, "I need stability. I want a place that feels like home." The agent smiled politely. "This property is ideal. The owner is an older lady, very proper, only asks for punctuality." Older lady. The title fit me like a medal. She read through the clauses carefully, just as she used to correct my recipes, line by line. 12-month lease, annual adjustment, late payment penalty. "All standard," the agent replied. She nodded, picked up the pen, and signed. The sound of the nib on paper echoed like that same lock turning years ago. Only this time, the click was mine. I left before she could see me. Outside, the breeze carried the scent of rain and orange blossom. I drew a deep breath. That night, the phone rang. It was Dr. Augusto. "Everything's finalized, Mrs. Helena. The rent will be deposited directly into the fund in 30 days. "Perfect. And confidentiality?" "Intact." I sat at my table, opened my notebook, and wrote, "Life pays back without making announcements. All it takes is a signature." I stared at the pen for a long time. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, whispered in a calm tone. Somewhere across town, she was probably asleep, unaware that the house where she planned her fresh start now breathed under my invisible name. Sometimes destiny doesn't shout. It just delivers receipts. 2 weeks after the lease was signed, Arthur called with the cautious tone of a man stepping on thin ice. "Mrs. Helena, could you come by the agency? There's a small, delicate matter." My stomach tightened. The sound of the subway in the background felt like a drumbeat. "Something wrong with the contract?" "No, but a name caught someone's attention." When I arrived, the air smelled of damp paper and reheated coffee, the familiar scent of waiting rooms where time moves too slowly. Arthur was tense, standing beside the broker, Marcos, a middle-aged man with kind but uneasy eyes. "Mrs. Helena," Marcos began, "forgive my bluntness, but are you related to the tenant, Carla Duarte?" The air thinned. "Why do you ask?" When reviewing the documents, I noticed the same last name. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but when she came back to file a request, I saw her photo and I put it together. Arthur stepped in sharply. "Marcos, confidentiality is a legal clause. Mentioning any name beyond the process breaches the contract." "I know, sir, but I felt I should confirm. I won't say a word." I took a slow breath. "Then don't confirm. Sometimes silence is the noblest form of truth." Marcos lowered his gaze. "You're right. Just, if she ever finds out, please leave me out of it." "I promise." He nodded, relieved, and left. The sound of the door closing felt like a seal pressing down on fate. Arthur exhaled. "There's risk, but he seems trustworthy." "Trust," I said softly, "is too expensive a word for me. But for today, I'll rent it." In the following days, life started testing me again. Carla was 2 days late with the first payment. The agency sent her a formal notice. Soon after, the deposit came through, along with a short voice note in the system. "I'm sorry for the delay. It's been a tough month." The message was brief, hesitant. Still, it pierced me. For the first time in years, she apologized, even without knowing to whom. One afternoon, Marcos showed up at my door with a folder. "Just some extra documents, Mrs. Helena. Nothing urgent. But, may I say something? Go ahead. I saw your daughter at the office the other day. She looked tired, but different. Softer. Sometimes time collects debts without filing lawsuits. I gave him a wistful smile. Time has its own sense of justice, Marcos. It does, and I think it's already begun. After he left, I sat alone with the folder on the table. The late afternoon light filtered through the curtains, casting the faint shadow of papers across the wood. I ran my fingers over my hidden name, there, unseen but real. I thought of it all, the words, the doors, the cold nights. Every tier now existed in official language, turned into clauses and signatures. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Revenge speaks, justice whispers, and the whisper lasts longer." I closed it, drew a deep breath, and looked out the window. The trees outside swayed gently, as if the world had started breathing with me again. Some secrets don't weigh you down. They just wait for the right time to be told. After that conversation with Marcos, a strange restlessness. It read, "I leave to my wife, Helena Duarte, the financial reserve created in my name, meant solely for her protection in the event of loss of home, health, or dignity." I cried, not from grief, but from recognition. He had seen everything before I could even name it. Even the pain I'd be too proud to admit. I left the bank under a gray sky, but with peace in my chest. The wind sounded like a distant applause, as if time itself were whispering, "It's all in order now." What was love has become structure. The next day, I showed the document to Dr. Augusto. He read it carefully, adjusting his glasses. "This is legally sound and morally unassailable. It proves that the fund used to purchase the house was built for this very purpose. No one can touch your name, Mrs. Helena." I nodded, voice trembling. Then it was him, protecting me even after he was gone. "Yes," he said softly. "Some loves leave invisible inheritances." That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table. The clock showed the same hour it had the day Carla locked me out. Only now, the hands moved for me. In my old notebook, I wrote, "True love doesn't die. It just changes its occupation." In the days that followed, I kept an eye on Carla through the agency reports. The rent arrived on time now, each month accompanied by short, polite notes. "Payment confirmed. Thank you." Reading those words, I felt the first trace of a quiet regret hidden between the lines. One day, Arthur came to visit. "You're calm," he said. "It's rare to see someone win without needing to defeat." I didn't win, Arthur. I learned. That night, I dreamed of Alvaro. His gentle smile, his steady hands, the look he gave me when he finished a hard job. I woke to sunlight and the scent of jasmine drifting through the window. I placed the folder with the testament on the table. The light fell across it perfectly, like a blessing. It felt as if he was saying, "Mission accomplished." Some loves depart, but leave their signatures where justice still hasn't arrived. I met Julia on a cold Saturday afternoon. I'd been invited to give a short talk at the local library. Theme: Memory and New Beginnings. The walls smelled of old paper and fresh coffee, the kind of place where stories breathe between shelves. When I finished, a young woman with short hair and curious eyes approached me. "Mrs. Helena, sorry to bother you, but what you said about forgiveness and dignity gave me chills. May I ask you something?" I smiled. "Of course, dear." "Have you ever faced an injustice you thought you'd never forgive?" I paused. The tick of a clock filled the silence. "Yes, but I learned forgiveness isn't a gift for others. It's a rescue for ourselves." She jotted that down in a small notebook. "My name's Julia. I'm a journalist. I'm working on a project about women who turned pain into purpose. I think your story fits perfectly." "My story?" I chuckled softly. "It's just one among thousands." "Exactly," she said. "The ones that sound ordinary are usually the ones that heal." We met for coffee, talked for hours. I told her about my years teaching, about what time had taught me, and how life writes justice in fine print. What I didn't tell her were names, neither my daughters nor the houses. Julia listened closely, never interrupting. She had the gift of silence, the kind that honors truth. You talk about pain like it's art, she said with a half smile. Because pain needs a frame, or it swallows us whole. Over the next weeks, she visited often, digging into the subject of how to rebuild yourself after being discarded. I told her the secret was not to become who you were, but to discover who you still could be. One day, she arrived with her laptop open. Mrs. Helena, I found something interesting for my piece. A house sold by a woman in debt and bought by an investment fund run by an older lady. Coincidence, right? My stomach turned cold. Coincidence is destiny's favorite disguise, she laughed. That's brilliant. Can I quote you? You can, but no names. Weeks later, her article came out. The Lady of Silence, When Love Turns into Justice. No names, no city, just the spirit of it all. It went viral. Letters poured in from across the country. Women who'd been dismissed, forgotten, silenced. Julia brought me some, teary-eyed. They see themselves in you. Not in me, I corrected gently, in what time can do for anyone who refuses to die quietly. Then one evening, my phone rang. Julia's voice was tense. Mrs. Helena, your daughter reached out. I froze. What? She read the article and said it sounded just like her life. She asked if I knew the lady. And what did you say? Nothing. I just told her stories like this happen more often than people think. I exhaled. Thank you, Julia. Sometimes silence is the only shield. She whispered back, and the only way to love without hurting. I hung up and stared out the window. The curtains swayed with the wind, and the sky had that exact color of a fresh start. Some voices come to tell our stories to the world. Others appear only to make sure we don't lose them within ourselves. The morning broke heavy, overcast, the kind of sky that signals an ending. I was making tea when the phone rang. Arthur's voice carried an edge I hadn't heard before. Mrs. Helena, we need to talk. In person, if possible. When I reached the real estate office, the air felt dense, the smell of cold coffee hanging like bad news. Arthur paced with a folder in hand. She found out. My body went still. How? Someone on the team slipped. Carla knows the owner is you. The room froze. A stapler clicked somewhere in the distance, like a judge's gavel. And what did she do? She's on her way here. She wants answers. I stared out the rain-streaked window. Then let her come. The truth doesn't need a defense. Minutes later, she appeared. Same firm heels, but her eyes were different. Confused, hurt, tired. Mom, was this your plan? To make me rent my own house? I breathed slowly. Not a plan. A path time drew. You bought it without telling me. You deceived me. I didn't deceive you. I just played by the same rules that once turned me out. She dropped her purse onto a chair, her voice cracking. That's cruel. Cruelty was the day you locked that door and called me useless. What I did now was simply sign where time told me to. She froze, tears gathering but refusing to fall. I didn't know what I was doing. I was desperate. And I was alive, but you refused to see it. Silence filled the room, just rain and the tick of the clock. Arthur stood by quietly, a witness of sorts. If you want, I said calmly, I can transfer the lease. But legally, it's valid. Everything was done by the book, no immoral clause. She bowed her head. I don't want to fight, I just want to understand. Then understand this, I said gently. Real justice doesn't destroy, it teaches. Carla sat down, exhausted. Did you hate me all this time? No. I just learned to love myself enough to stop begging for space. Finally, her tears fell. I humiliated you. Yes, but not forever, because time doesn't charge interest on love. She looked at me like she was seeing her own reflection for the first time. What now? Now you decide what to do with what you've learned. We sat there in silence. The rain grew louder. Arthur quietly gathered the papers and said, The lease stands, but there's room for a new kind of agreement, a human one if you both wish. Carla nodded. I do. So do I. When we stepped outside, the wind was sharp, the air cold, but something inside me felt warm again. The truth, spoken without hatred, had the weight of healing. Destiny doesn't shout. It simply returns the key to the right hands. After that meeting, I spent the night awake. The house seemed to breathe beside me, heavy air, but alive. Her words echoed in my mind. I just wanted to understand. For the first time, I realized time had done what life couldn't, placed us on opposite sides so we could finally face each other. I sat at the table with the lease open before me. The small print pulsed under the yellow lamp. For a fleeting second, I thought about tearing it apart, but that wouldn't be justice. That would be impulse. And I had already learned the difference. The next morning, I went to Dr. Augusto's office. The air smelled of coffee and new paint, the quiet kind of place where order lives. He looked up from behind his glasses and smiled politely. You came to renegotiate? Not renegotiate, I said. Rewrite. He raised an eyebrow. Rewrite? I want to add a social clause. I want part of the rent to go to a fund for elderly women who've been abandoned. I want this to become a personal policy, not a punishment. He folded his hands, impressed. So, you want the contract to reflect the justice you believe in? Exactly. I want the law to do what the heart can't anymore. As he typed, the click of the keys sounded like a moral forge. We can include a condition, he said. 50% reduction in rent if the tenant volunteers in the same program. Perfect. I signed without hesitation. The scratch of the pen was clear, steady, like a prayer written in ink. When I stepped outside, sunlight was breaking through the clouds. The world, for once, seemed to agree. Justice doesn't need to be cold, just fair. That same day, Arthur delivered the addendum to Carla. Hours later, the phone rang. Her voice was soft, trembling. Mom, why? Because a contract without compassion is just paper, and I won't carry your guilt or mine any longer. She cried quietly. I let her. Sometimes tears are the signature of repentance. Weeks later, I received the first report from the new fund. The project already had a name, Casa Helena, chosen by Carla without telling me. Destiny, once again, had done the work I never could have asked for. I went to visit her at the shelter that now received the donations. Elderly women smiled, knitting bright scarves, the smell of soup warm in the air. Carla saw me and walked over slowly. Thank you for letting me fix what I broke, she said, eyes glistening. I touched her shoulder. It wasn't punishment, sweetheart. It was a love lesson, written in legal language. That day, I understood. Forgiveness isn't declared, it's recorded. Some victories don't come from confrontation. They come from the signature that seals a peaceful heart. Morning arrived bright, but the air was thick with the weight of closure. I tied the same blue scarf I wore the day I left home, as if time itself had invited me to finish the circle dressed in memory. The smell of fresh coffee, the clock striking 9:15, and that loud, sacred silence between walls that had once listened to pain. I reached the notary's office with steady steps, even though my heart stumbled a little. The building was the same one where I'd signed the house papers. Today, it would host the final act. Dr. Augusto was already waiting, immaculate as always, files tucked neatly under his arm. She confirmed she's coming, he said. I nodded. Destiny, as usual, is on time. Moments later, Carla entered. Beige coat, hair pulled back, exhaustion shadowing her eyes. When our gazes met, silence did the talking. Good morning, she murmured. Good morning. Augusto placed the documents on the table. The rustle of paper felt like ritual. We're here, he began, to formalize the social clause and renew the lease. Carla nodded. I'd like to read it. She read aloud, voice shaking just slightly. The tenant agrees to volunteer in a program supporting elderly women in vulnerable conditions. In exchange, rent will be reduced by 50%, as determined by the owner. Her voice faltered near the end. She lifted her eyes. Was this your way of teaching me? No, I said softly. It was my way of not losing you. The notary cleared his throat, trying to mask the emotion in the room. "We may proceed with the signatures." She hesitated. "I don't deserve this kindness." "Kindness would have been forgetting. This is remembrance." She signed. And the sound of the pen on paper felt identical to that lock clicking years ago. But now, it wasn't a barrier. It was release. When the notary stamped the document, I felt years dissolve in a breath. Carla set down the pen and wept quietly, the kind of tears that cleanse rather than wound. "Mom," she whispered, "I didn't know love could have a deed." "It does," I smiled. "When it's real, it's filed twice, once at the notary and once in the heart." We stood up, face to face, no shields, no scripts. "You won," she said. "No, my dear, I survived." Outside, the light poured through the tall windows, gilding everything. Time itself seemed to pause, respectful of our peace. Carla leaned forward and hugged me. For the first time in years, the embrace wasn't requested. It was returned. Just the sound of breathing and a long overdue warmth. "Dr. Augusto stepped aside discreetly. "Justice is done," he murmured, more to himself than to us. We walked out together. The street smelled of hot pavement and clean wind. We moved side by side until we reached the gate. The same one that once closed behind me now opened easily. "Do you want to come in?" I asked. "May I?" "It's your home too, only now, with love clauses." We stepped inside. The walls seemed to exhale. In the living room, the old mirror reflected two women reborn, one who had found her voice, and one who had finally learned the price of blindness. "Remember this mirror?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "I used to fix my hair in it before school. Now, when you look into it, you'll see something else, the face of someone who's grown." She laughed softly through tears. "You're incredible, Mom." "No," I said, just patient enough to let destiny finish the essay. Before she left, she turned back. "I'll honor this house. And the project, too. You can trust me." "I already do. Justice doesn't need watchmen. It needs conscience." The gate closed gently behind her. The wind lifted my blue scarf, the same one that once caught my tears. Now it danced, light, like a flag of peace. I sat on the couch, eyes closed, breathing in the stillness. Silence, complete. Past, resolved. Justice, finally notarized. Some victories don't come with applause. They come with the sweet sound of peace returning home. The months that followed felt like a slow, sunlit season. The contract remained firm, and the social project blossomed. Every week I received reports from Casa Helena. Simple pages, but filled with stories that restored my faith. Women finding shelter again, grandmothers cooking once more, widows writing letters of gratitude for a roof and a kind ear. Carla poured her heart into it. She visited the shelter every week, helped with fundraisers, even donated part of her own salary. The first time I saw a photo of her serving soup to an elderly woman, something in me softened. Not pride, not triumph, but pure relief. Time had done what my words never could. On Sundays, she started coming over for lunch. The clinking of silverware, the smell of her favorite food. Those sounds filled the house with the kind of life I thought I'd lost. Sometimes we didn't even speak. We just smiled, the silence warm instead of sharp. One afternoon, she brought flowers. "For you," she said. "What's the occasion?" She smiled. "It's the anniversary of the day you bought the house, the day you became my landlord and my teacher." We laughed. The sound echoed gently through the house, washing away old ghosts. Out in the garden, the hydrangeas bloomed again, the same blue that once colored our happiest days. I watered them slowly, the sunlight resting on my hands. Each petal felt like time whispering, "Now you can rest." Dr. Augusto still dropped by sometimes for coffee. He'd sit quietly, admiring the calm. "Mrs. Helena," he said once, "you turned an eviction into a moral treaty." I smiled. "Not a treaty, doctor, a mirror." Arthur visited too, faithful as ever. "I've never seen a contract bring this much peace," he joked. That's because the profit wasn't money, I said. It was meaning. Gradually, I realized that love and respect no longer needed to be taught. They'd settled naturally into our days, like the smell of a cake baking in the oven. At night, I'd sit on the porch, watching the city lights flicker. The wind carried the faint sound of laughter, of life. When justice is done without noise, time finally allows itself to smile again. It's been a year since the day of that final signature. Life, once a courtroom with no verdict, now walks in peace. The house smells of fresh bread and jasmine. The living room clock ticks freely again, no longer heavy with guilt. And the silence, the same one that used to feel like a prison, is now my dearest guest. Carla is thriving in the project. She calls often to tell me stories from Casa Helena, women rediscovering hope, grandmothers finding laughter again, elders regaining dignity. Just the other day, she said, "Mom, one of them called me her daughter." And I realized, the love I once denied you, the world gave back to me multiplied. I smiled through quiet tears. Time never fails. It simply arrives late, carrying wisdom. I still keep my old notebook. On its last page, I wrote what has become my life's testament. Real justice never humiliates. It teaches. When I close that notebook, I feel another door close, the last one leading to the past. Now, what drives me is lightness. The house is alive again, full of kind voices. And every breeze that drifts through the window reminds me, love doesn't vanish, it just changes address. Maybe this story isn't just mine. Maybe it belongs to every woman who was once called useless, forgotten, or thrown away, and still found the grace to start over with dignity. Because time may be slow, but it never loses its way to justice. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Every week, you'll hear real stories of women who transform pain into strength, humiliation into wisdom, and silence into justice. Because love can be fragile, but dignity? That never breaks.